There's superstars requesting trade. There's superstars getting injured. People are missing a bunch of time, really shaping up, really shifting the fantasy basketball waiver wire. In this video, we're going to lock in, see who's available, see who's getting a bump, and see who we can add that could have rest of season value on our fantasy basketball squads all season long. I'm also going to go over the ridiculous NBA schedule next week for week 8 so you can get a head start on your matchup. Don't get distracted with fantasy football playoffs about to start. We need to make sure we're picking up the best and most impactful players for our squad each and every week. Enough yapping, let's get into it. First up off the main list, we have Saddiq Bey. Now, Bey has quietly been really productive for the Pelicans this season, and especially lately. He's been a top 50 player in 9-cat over the last month, which is just not something I thought I'd be saying back in October. I know I haven't talked about him as much this year because honestly, I didn't think he was a good enough real-life player to matter consistently in fantasy, and combine that with just how many players were ahead of him on the depth chart in New Orleans, I didn't expect him to carve out a large enough role and have enough usage and touches, especially coming off a major injury like he was. Well, that has all changed in New Orleans with the laundry list of injuries that they're dealing with. Zion, Poole, Jones, Missy, all missing a ton of time. And that's not even to talk about DeJounte Murray probably returning sometime in the new year too. Bey has had a nice runway to real minutes and real production in the last month. Bey has averaged over 34 minutes per game his last 7, averaging 18.1 points, 8.4 rebounds, 2.6 assists, and 1.5 steals in that time frame for a Pelicans team that has just been absolutely gutted by injuries. Bey has fit in nicely with increased opportunity. Who knows when Zion and all those injured guys will be back. Bey is carving out a nice role for himself and forcing himself into must roster status for 12-team leagues. I think he is definitely shooting over his head just a little bit the last couple of weeks, but the way he plays does give him a pretty stable floor. He lives inside the paint and behind the three-point line, not a mid-range game in his sight, just high volume shots and counting stats. He'll hurt you from the line and pretty much be a 0 in the block category, but with the minutes and production that he's getting, there's just no way that Bey should still be floating around on any wires. And yeah, I know, super competitive leagues, he was scooped up weeks ago. So next up, we have Ryan Nembhard. It looks like we've officially hit the point where Dallas is cycling through yet another point guard option, since Brandon Williams has looked absolutely disgusting the last couple of weeks and really bottomed out over the last 2, not even cracking 15 minutes per night. Kid has now turned to Nembhard as really the last option for that Dallas Mavericks team, with D'Lo being himself, you know, still being quite stinky as well. Undrafted out of Gonzaga, Nembhard's been playing really solid basketball the last week and rewarding or practically forcing Jason Kidd's hand to give him more minutes, give him more playing time. But before we get into it, I just want to clarify, there's absolutely no guarantee what Jason Kidd's going to do with his minutes or his rotations going forward. But when a starting point guard becomes available on the wire, like we have potentially with Nembhard now, we add him and we worry about that later. It's the same sort of thing that we're talking about with Brandon Williams. We don't know if it's going to last, but we can't miss out on him if there is potential season-long value here, because we're worrying about the unknown from a coaching decision. So either this sticks and Nembhard turns into like a rest of the season guy as the starting point guard for Dallas, or when Kyrie returns into the new year, or Kidd messes with rotations again and we just drop him, move on, and forget about it. So Nembhard can hit the 3, score, dish the rock, evidenced by his back-to-back double-doubles. He can score from practically anywhere on the court, as seen by his shot chart here. He has the midi, he can get to the rim, he can splash the 3, he grades out as a great shot creator. He's undersized at 5'11" and ranks very low in deflections, so we can't really expect him to block many shots, if any, this year, so he's not going to help you in the stock categories at all. His assist to turnover ratio is just off the charts. He has 46 assists to 11 turnovers, with a bunch of those 11 turnovers just coming when he's played like 5 minutes a game in garbage time. So really, who knows, he's probably not into the game. They're probably real cheap turnovers. I think the games that he started and played is a more potentially accurate representation of playing time. Nembhard actually has a shot to real rest of season value here, and that's just something you can't ignore. I know it didn't work out with Brandon Williams, but we can't ignore it here. Yes, it is Jason Kidd. He could flip the rotation upside down next week, who knows, and makes Nembhard completely useless. But with the way things look right now, currently, you can't risk leaving Nembhard on the wire in 12 league teams. We have another repeat guy, or potentially a triple repeat guy, and that's Dylan Harper off the San Antonio Spurs. So Dylan Harper is back and healthy and starting to inch back towards that 25 25-minute per night mark, which I think he will need to hold season-long value in 12-team leagues. In college, in Rutgers, he was the highest-rated recruit in program history. He's a big-bodied guard. He's a do-it-all playmaker with great positional versatility. He can pressure the rim and has elite shot-making ability from the mid to the three. Harper's definitely justified being the second overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. It just sucks that he went to the Spurs, where they have a complete logjam when everyone is healthy in the backcourt there. That's the only real thing that's held him back so far this year in the early going, besides injury. And I don't really know if that's going to change going forward. I would absolutely love it to, I want it to, and I'm hopeful. I just don't know how realistic it's going to be this year when everyone's healthy. But to not poop on everyone's parade. Also, side note, do you guys prefer like when I swear in these videos? I had been starting to swear a little bit more. It's just normally how I talk and how I communicate, so it comes pretty natural to me, but I stopped doing it in this video. I don't know if like YouTube frowns upon it and like stops pushing this video out or not, or maybe you guys despise a potty mouth. I am curious. It is, again, kind of like how I talk normally. Let me know what you guys think down below if you care or not. But back to Harper. If he can just get 25 minutes per night, he'll definitely be useful in 12-team leagues. He's just simply too talented, even with the logjam. He scores, rebounds, passes, gets steals, and he's efficient from the floor usually. He had an absolute clunker of a night tonight, going 1 of 11 from the floor. Just chalk that up to be an absolute stinker. And remember, he is a rookie, so you can't expect him to have a lot of ups and downs throughout the season. But as the year goes on and as we get into the second half of the year, he should only get better. I don't think there's any way I'm letting Harper sit on deeper 12-league team wires right now. If there's even a chance that he leapfrogs someone in that backcourt in San Antonio and locks in like a solid secondary role, you want to be the one holding when or if that happens. Hey, would you look at that? Sacramento actually did something right and gave the rookie a little bit of run there. Congrats, Kings. So yes, next up we have Maxime Renaud, the Frenchman from Paris. So yeah, the big 7-footer enjoyed the best game of his young career on Wednesday, slamming home 25 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, a steal, and a block, while shooting 67% from the floor. 6'7", nice. Renaud wasn't really expected to showcase himself until later in the year, just being stuck behind that minute usage eater in Domantas Sabonis. But with the Sabonis injury and the Kings just sucking big ball sack, Big White is getting some exposure and played really well against a tough defensive unit in Houston. The Frenchman can hit the three, he can board, he has a nice hands touch, and should be relatively solid in the field goal percentage department as well. Hopefully this enticed the Kings a little bit to give him more consistent minutes, but when Sabonis returns, it might not really matter again. It could be bad, but who knows when that'll be. I have no idea, and who knows what the Kings might look like post deadline. So in the meantime, Renaud is starting to play well enough to be in consideration for a stream or a nice back end addition in a deep 12-man super competitive league. Just know that when Sabonis returns, his minutes could absolutely plummet, and he might be or could be pretty useless. But in the meantime, let's hope this young man continues to play well and continues to be a useful guy, a useful back-end guy for 12-league teams. We'll light the beam and stick in Sacramento with Malik Monk. Now, Monk has always been an elite scorer, but, and I know I sound like a broken record, this Sacramento roster is disgustingly crowded when everyone's healthy. You've got Levine, DeRozan, Westbrook, Murray, Schroeder, Sabonis. It's just a mess with so many mouths to feed. That does just expose Monk to being very prone to dud when the ball just isn't swinging his way. That said, he's shooting the lights out right now. He's playing really well. He's a classic hot and cold player, but his last 2 games were in the 30-minute range, and if that sticks, I'm not convinced it will. But if it does, he has the talent and the fantasy profile to be highly productive. Honestly, in that scenario, he is pretty close to like a must roster guy in 12-league teams. We've seen it in the past. We saw it last year. He's top 75 in 8-cat when he's getting real minutes and real usage. But once this team is fully healthy again, his value just could completely fall off a cliff. He becomes way too scoring dependent and inconsistent to trust as like an everyday, every game fantasy option. He is just someone to keep your eye on though and monitor that situation, that gross situation in Sacramento. I've lost my hat again, but whatever. This was the last player segment that I had to film, so we're going to keep rocking you with a little bit of hat here, all right, boys? So last up, we're going to have DeAnthony Melton from the Golden State Warriors. So I really want to see his role usage when Curry and Butler are both healthy and playing. Melton has always been a steal specialist in the past, and I wouldn't think that would change in Golden State. He's just that prototypical 3-and-D player, more suited for category leagues for sure over points leagues. In my opinion, Melton's like a way more well-rounded player than Gary Payton is, and we all know how many minutes Gary Payton can get game to game in Steve Kerr's rotation. Melton is no stranger to injuries though, being limited to only 44 games the prior 2 seasons. The Warriors backcourt is absolutely logjam with wings, guards that need minutes, but I believe Melton is the type of player with veteran experience that Steve Kerr could lean on once he's up to speed as a solid defender and floor spacer in that motion offense. Nothing is guaranteed though whatsoever, just like how we're going to talk about, Will Richard in the recap. So I definitely think he's more of a watch type guy now before dropping anyone of value, but definitely keep a close eye on his minutes in Kerr's rotation over the next 3 or 4 games. Okay, now I just want to do a little segment here about couple injured guys that I'm watching to see when they're going to come back, or a couple guys that haven't been given a ton of minutes or usage, but if they get that opportunity, I think they can be very useful for 12-team leagues. So the first gap about that is Herbert Jones. So just like how I talked about Bay early in this video, a lot of those guys are out. So if he does come back soon, there should be a lot of minutes and a lot of usage available. He's definitely more specialized for category leagues as he's a big stock contributor and doesn't do a whole lot else. But the steals are usually elite with him. And next up, we had Tari Eason. Maybe he just never will stay healthy. He hasn't at all to begin his NBA career so far, but he was building some momentum before he got hurt. He's a very fantasy friendly game. If the minutes are there, he's a solid guy for 12-team leagues when healthy. Just know that he's probably going to sit out every back-to-back regardless, which just does suck. And then Kyle Filipowski, my heart or boner is just drawn to this guy, I guess. I love talking about him. I just know the upside is amazing if the minutes and usage are there. He's been trending up the last 3 or 4 games though, boys, so keep a very close eye on him. And lastly, Dominic Barlow. Steals, blocks, rebounds. He seems pretty decent in all those. Embiid never plays. PG is a walking band-aid. The minutes are a little too inconsistent for my liking right now, so that's kind of why it's just like a watch list guy for me. But if you start to see some consistency, he can stuff those counting stats to be pretty useful for 12s. Okay, now let's get into that schedule breakdown for week 8 of the fantasy basketball season. Now it's pretty ridiculous because of the NBA Cup games. A lot of teams just have absolute terrible schedules. Like, I don't need to go in depth about any of them. I'm just going to put them up on the screen here. All these teams with just one game, as he's done on the list beside me, are really tough for any streamers. I really think there could be a massive discrepancy for man games this week, depending on how your roster is built and how many players you have out of these 1-game teams and how many your opponent has out of the 2 and 3. I think there could be a massive variance, kind of just depending on your matchup. Like I know on mine, before it's even started, I'm already down 7 man games just based on what players we have on what teams. So it could be a real tough week for a lot of people before it's even started. So we're going to want to try to avoid any streamers or these fringe guys from any of these teams that just have 1 game. I think most people's man games are going to be pretty suppressed this week just because teams' max games are with 3 and then a bunch of teams with 2 and then obviously all these ones with 1. So I think it will be hard to stream this week, or at least you won't be able to get like a huge advantage where you could in a normal schedule where a lot more teams would have 4 games. Okay, so for teams that have an okay schedule, and yeah, we're going to classify 2 games as an okay schedule just because this week is so ridiculous, would be teams that at least have 1 game at the beginning of the week when like no one else is playing, so you could stream someone then and open up a spot on the weekend or Friday and get that extra game. So the Pelicans is the best one. So we obviously talked about it in this video. If Bay's still floating around on your wire, you can go grab him for sure. If Herbert Jones is going to play, I don't know if he's gonna, but if he is, he could definitely be worth a look. And then I think probably Fears is rostered in every super competitive league, but he would be an option. Jose Alvarado, maybe he's getting a decent run right now. So there is a bunch of guys from this team that you can just get a man game bump immediately. And then the next 2, the Knicks and the Heat. For the Knicks, the only real guy that's probably available as a streamer and maybe has a little bit of juice is Miles McBride. He has been playing decent right now with OG out for injury. I don't think he's going to be back in time, but you'll definitely want to have to watch that before you pick him up for that game. And then off Miami, maybe you get Jaime Hawkins Jr. if he's around, maybe Mitchell, someone like that. Yeah, our options are pretty limited, as you can see, for streamers in the early part of the week. It's really tough based on the teams that are playing, and that more importantly, the teams that just aren't playing. And then teams or schedules that you consider are good with 3 games this week. I know it's just ridiculous. I've said it a bunch, but that would be any of the 3 teams this week. So Indiana, Minnesota, Phoenix, Sacramento, and the Spurs. All of them do play on Monday too, which is awesome. Phoenix and the Spurs end their 3-game week before Sunday, which is kind of nice to open up a streamer spot on that last day to try and tilt the balance in your matchup if needed. But really, we we can't be that picky this week with such a limited amount of teams playing 3 games. So any decent streamer that's available in your league will take priority here if it's strictly a streamer type and that doesn't really have rest of season value because of the man game bump. Check Indiana for TJ McConnell, who I still think has some rest of season juice if his minutes can just get over 25 per night. The guy is a per minute producer like it's out of this world. But also you could maybe stream Jay Huff. He's been shooting the 3 ball all right. Or maybe you risk it with Isaiah Jackson and he gets some minutes. Maybe he does something, you know, to the coaching staff, gets in the good books. So guys on Phoenix that are probably already rostered, but you want to double check. So see if like Dylan Brooks is available or if Grayson Allen was dropped when he was hurt. Colin Gillespie, Royce O'Neal, Jordan Goodwin, all some decent options here to get a man games bump on this weird week. And then the Spurs like Dylan Harper, Keldon Johnson, guys like that. There should be some options there as well. So just make sure you check specifically in your league instead of me just rambling off a bunch of names, because who knows who's available and what. But these are the teams that you want to focus on to get that man game bump.
It's time for Number to Sports Weekly Waiver Wire Recap. Is he going to hit himself in the not-so-torpedo of beer? Let's find out if he you over last week with his weekly recommendations.
All right, you heard Morgan Freeman. It's recap time. So we're going to recap my previous waiver wire video from last week. So first up, we had Jalen Wells. Now, if we look at Jalen Wells' game log, he's only played 2. He's playing tonight, Friday, before I'm recording this. So we'll have to see how he does then. But first game, he hit 3 threes, 15 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 4 from 5 from the field. I don't like how he only shot 5 attempts, but he did play 30 minutes. Next game, he had 28 minutes, 9 shots, which is a little bit better, 69, nice. He hit 2 threes, 20 points, 1 rebound, and 2 assists. Not much really besides threes and points. He didn't have any stocks those 2 games, but he shot well from the floor, decent from the line. I'm hoping he gets more involved with some counting stats, rebounds, assists, some steals, maybe a block here and there. But really, you can't complain for that decent stream that week. We'll see how he does to close out the weekend, but all in all, I still think Jalen Wells should be rostered in 12-team leagues with my rant out and to see if he can keep building on this. Next up, we had Julian Champagny from the San Antonio Spurs. Now, he was coming on a nice 3-peat double-double mark heading into the waiver wire video, and then he just put up 2 absolute stinkers. If we just look at his game log, 1 from 6, 5 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, terrible. Next game, 35 minutes, but went 3 for 10 from the floor with 1 3, 7 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, terrible. He finally started to play a little bit better in his last game in 28 minutes, going 5 for 8 with 4 threes, 14 points, 5 rebounds, but no counting stats. I still like that he's getting around that 30-minute per night mark. He should shoot better than he has before. Just in a little lull right now. But again, like I said, when they start getting these guys healthy, when they start getting these guys back, you definitely can move on from Champagny. He's definitely just more of a short-term stream. If you're in need of some points, rebounds, hopefully he picks that back up, and some threes. And then we had Trey Jones, the next guy up, and I was kind of curious if people had dropped him after White returned. I didn't really get much feedback in the comments, so I was still kind of wondering. I know he was a free agent in my league, but we only actually got 1 game out of him. And in that game, he had 30 minutes, went 7 to 10 from the floor, 4 for 5 from line with 2 threes, 20 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists. He's been battling an ankle injury, so he unfortunately missed the other game. I'm hoping that he's coming back soon because I know White is also dealing with an injury too. And when White's out, we know Trey Jones is almost like a must roster guy. So I'd still be holding him just to see how bad his ankle injury is. But if it's any extended absence, you obviously just cut him loose back to the wire, regardless really of what White's situation is. I don't think White's going to be out that long, but I'm kind of disappointed we only got 1 game from him because he could have had a couple nice games there for week 7 for sure. Oh man, now we're heading into the dark days here with Mr. Will Richard just getting absolutely bent over by Steve Kerr's nutty rotation. So he missed his first 3 shots in that first game there, then practically didn't play again till the end of the game. If you just look at his last 3 game logs, like what even is this, man? Just downright terrible. I was so dead wrong about this with Steph Curry's injury. I thought he was going to get a lot more run. He had been playing decent. He had a couple good games. He was hustling. He was doing things that Steve Kerr likes. But, you know, the second that something happens like that, who knows what's going on off scenes? You get in Steve Kerr's doghouse and you're just toast. It was definitely a fleer and a short-term thing. So, yeah, there is no reason whatsoever to be holding on to Will Rich right now or picking him up at all. Big L for me in week 7 there. Sorry, boys. And the next one was Moses Moody. At least he had 1 decent game. His last game, 5 for 10, 2 threes, 14 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. Again, he had another clunker before that. I think we're just at the point here, even with Steph Curry out or Jimmy Butler out, you just can't play anyone besides maybe Pods, Kaminga, and then maybe Melton once he gets more worked in here. I like what I saw from him his first games back there. He looked good. He looked spry. These other like fringe guys, Moody, Richard, stuff like that, crap like that. Buddy Healed, it's just no. I don't even think they're worth the stream anymore. So yeah, I knew when we talked about this video, there wasn't going to be a lot of rest of season guys besides maybe Jalen Wells if he continues to play better like I talked about. But man, that was some rough takes in there. Big fat L's almost across the board for week 7. So we are definitely getting a punishment here.
Oh, fuck. That's weird.
Just
So maybe I went a little too hard on those picks for week 7. You know what? I'll have to dial it back in. I'll have to refocus, especially after that punishment. We'll get it back, boys. Don't worry. All right, boys, but I think that's it for this video. I appreciate y'all. You guys are awesome. Make sure to hit that sub button if you aren't subscribed so you don't miss a video going forward. Hit that thumbs up, like it, do whatever. Comment down below. Anything helps. I appreciate it. I've been toying around with thinking of maybe doing like a live stream on Friday night, like a live mailbag type thing. We'll just shoot the crap, talk about fantasy basketball, maybe for an hour or a couple hours a night, have some beers. What do you guys think about that? Let me know down below. As always, have a good rest of your weekend, week, day, night, wherever you are, and I'll see you guys real soon.